About 30 odd years ago, I was joining a prestigious law firm in Toronto and meeting some of my colleagues for the first time. So a little bit of a high stakes at a dinner party. And the person next to me was asking about Bermuda, of course, and I started talking somehow. We got into the subject of slavery. And suddenly I was interrupted from a wonderful, older, white Bermudian across the dinner table. Actually, he tut-tutted me. "Oh, Arlene, slavery, such as it was in Bermuda." Unfortunately, even today, we don't know much about our history. It's still not taught in the schools. And if I didn't know any better, I would have been utterly silenced, embarrassed, right there in front of my new colleagues. But luckily, I knew better. In the 1970s, 69 and 70, I was part, some of you may remember, of the Berkeley Institute's student group that created our very own Black history classes. A lot of problems, a lot of resistance, but that's another story. We did some of our own research. Few of us used to go to the library right there in town, and we used to troll through those old microfilms. And so when he tut-tutted me, I was able to turn around and answer as an equal at that table. I was able to teach my compatriot things that he never knew, not to mention a little riff on whether or not slavery could actually be considered benign in any way. In my current work, I'm really stunned at how much decisions get made, important decisions get made for our country, based on opinion, based on whim or some sort of personal agenda. And that dinner table had taught me how critically important it is to see with our own eyes, not through the eyes of others, and to get the facts. So in my current work as the Ombudsman for Bermuda, the facts are the cornerstone of what we do. So I'm going to share a couple of examples. But before I do that, I know a couple of you are probably thinking, I'm the what? So let me tell you a little bit about what an ombudsman is. There are approximately 140 national ombudsmen around the world, and we like to think that we make accountability and transparency, which are words that get bandied about quite a lot. We like to think that we make those words alive, come alive in a practical way. What we do is that we investigate complaints that come from anybody in the public about problems or maladministration in the delivery of government services. So maladministration can include things like abuse of power or inefficiency or unreasonable delay, mistake of fact, mistake of law, and so forth. And after investigating that, then our job is to try and find resolutions that would put complainants in the place that they would have been in had there been no maladministration. So how do we get to that point? Ombudsmen all over the world obsess about the facts. It is not just me. And imagine having a three-dimensional puzzle in several different layers. The more complex the complaint, the more layers. And so we've got to sort of gather up the puzzle pieces and then try and orient them and try and find the corners like a real puzzle, try and find the parameters and figure out what's really going on here. So let me give you the first example. We had a Bermudian patient who was stable enough to be brought back to our hospital after spending a great deal of time, months and months, in the US. And the family soon came to us to complain that the hospital staff in Bermuda was incompetent, and they didn't know what they were doing, they did not care, they disrespected us as a family. We didn't have these problems in the States, they said. They thought we were ambassadors for Bermuda. So I went and gathered up the other side of the facts and spoke to the hospital. This was the worst family they had ever dealt with in their lives. These people were demanding, they were interfering, they didn't have respect for our professionalism, and on and on. So things weren't adding up, right? I was obviously missing a piece of the puzzle because they couldn't both be model citizens and the family from hell. So I thought I'd better call the States. And immediately the answer was, wonderful family, engaged, Oh, we loved them. They were role models for other families in the hospital. I said, really? That's interesting. Because here, they're considered to be a bit hypervigilant and over-anxious. And the person on the other side of the line almost chuckled. He said, well, of course they're hypervigilant and over-anxious. We expect that. That's normal. We're used to that. And I said, well, why? They said, well, it's this population of patient. And so my ears perked up. What does that mean, this population of patient? And it was that this type of patient is extremely vulnerable. Any little thing that goes wrong could be devastating. And so the hospital in the US had figured out a way of engaging families, sort of co-opting their anxiety and making the families a part of every single bit of the care of the patient, including use of the equipment and so forth. So those families actually knew a great deal. Our folks in Bermuda, on the other hand, had never had a long-term patient like this on a ward. They didn't know that the anxiety was normal. They didn't realize or figure out how to engage the family. And things were getting really hostile all around and going south very quickly. So armed with the facts, with this additional information, I was able to explain the family to our local hospital and explain our hospital to the family. And I'm happy to say that after a couple of interventions, the relationship has completely changed, and obviously that's better for the health of the patient. Yeah, it changed dramatically. I still am downtown. I might still meet a nurse or two who says thank you for what you did. But the fun thing is that I had actually recommended that two of the specialists who attended to this young man in the States come down and talk with the folks here, walk through the care with him. And they were able to assure the family that our folks were competent, but also the family was assured that our folks had a direct line to the people that they knew. But the funny thing is, you could not believe the look of shock and surprise when our folks in our hospital saw how loving and respectful and hugging and smiling the family was when they saw those two specialists. I mean, our folks didn't know that they could smile. So having the facts helped with the care, but it also really brought tolerance, and that's important. So let's look at another quick example. We had a tradesman who came in. He had been spending about a year trying to get the government to pay him $54,000 for services rendered. He was often brought in on an emergency basis to facilities. Sometimes he had to do a temporary fix and then come back and do a permanent fix. Other times he was on the site and someone else would see him and say, oh, great, when you're done with that, can you please come and check this? Now, he wrote everything down in his trusty little book, but our government folks wrote down only the original requisition. So when the time came to pay his invoice, they said, we can't prove this. We don't have any record of it. So yeah, but that's a problem with your record keeping, not his. But they were not bad people. They were just trying to follow the proper payment protocols, but their records were off kilter. So I had to figure out what's really going on here. What's the core of this issue? So I asked one question. Gentlemen, is he a crook? Is he trying to pull a fast one? No, he's reliable, he's honest, we love using him, he's great. I said, in that case, he's probably being honest about this bill. So I want you to go back, come back in 2 months, and work with him and reconstruct those visits. Speak to the other people involved and see if he really did do the things he's claiming. Well, they came back in 2 months, and they were able to prove about 70%. And on the balance of probabilities that he was honest about the other 30, I recommended he get paid the full amount. So having the facts in this case was a matter of justice for this man to the tune of $54,000. Those are examples of how individual people can get helped in our system. Let me give you an example of what happens when you go after the facts and you're making a decision for the whole country. I'm not going to use Bermuda. We're going to go to Curacao. We're going to go to, you can read my annual reports for Bermuda. We're going to go to Curacao. where I was actually trying to do some best practice research. I was trying to find out if there's any country in the world that does not require environmental impact assessments, and some of you from Bermuda will know why I was trying to do that. But I haven't found any other country in the world, but in any event, in Curacao, they had a national energy plan, and they really wanted to harness some of the winds that are in the north of the country. And a lot of the civil servants and the environmentalists and others said, don't know about that, because that area is very close to some caves that are the habitat for very unique and special species of bats. And these bats have been studied quite a bit over the years. They had preservation, conservation status, and so forth. And any ideas about these wind farms in that area before had been nixed. But someone said, really? Those bats are going into the wind tunnels? Let's find out how far the bats actually fly. And they realized that none of their research had actually brought this point up with any scientific certainty. So they went back and researched and discovered that the bats only flew a certain range. And in fact, by repositioning the proposed windmills, they could both develop the country and develop their energy and preserve the bats. The good news is that they did not think that they knew everything. They realized that there was one additional question that they could ask. Now, am I suggesting that we should spend our entire lives being hypervigilant about the facts? No. You are secure, you're safe, you do not have to go into the grocery store and spend a half a day verifying the price of a can of beans. Am I suggesting that we just throw away emotion and intuition? Absolutely not. I think these emotion and intuition are such an integral part of who we are as human beings, and we do have to listen to them. But emotion and intuition have their place, and the facts have their place. Now, we're not going to have time to explore the bigger issue. What happens when you have the facts, but people distort them or discard them for their own personal agendas and political agendas, and we just see this all over in the public sphere. I don't have, actually, any grand suggestions on that score, but in keeping with some of what our folks have done earlier today, I would offer this. As parents, maybe we can stop pretending that we know everything and teach our children that life is a continuous journey of discovery. In our schools, and we just saw that with the hip-hop, maybe instead of rewarding our children just for getting the right answer, we should reward them for the process of looking for the answer. Maybe we got a lot of work to do in our schools, it looks like, all over the world, right? Maybe in our workplaces, and from my perch, I would say, especially in the civil service, we should not evaluate people on how well they can cover their backs. Maybe we should evaluate them on how well they can look for new solutions. Yeah. And finally, again, just an odd thought, that in our public sphere, in our politics, in our religion, our civil society, maybe we should privilege the asking of questions for the purposes of understanding versus the asking of questions or the making of statements for the purposes of thumping everybody with our own point of view. So, those are the grand scheme. I don't have a lot of great solutions, but I do know that it can start with each one of us. Whenever there is a risk of injustice, or whenever there is a danger of stereotyping, and especially whenever we think we've got it all and we know it all, that's the time to stop and ask, is there one more question I can ask? Is there another piece of the puzzle? And if we actually spend some time with the mass of information that we have, spend some time thinking through, is there something else we need to learn? If we actually reality check ourselves, is our own wishful thinking, is our own cynicism affecting the way that I see the facts? Then maybe, just maybe, we can find the gem that is the truth. So, I use this as a metaphor for our office because we get a lot of stuff coming at us from all sorts of different people, and we really do have to pick through and find out the treasure and the gem that is the truth. I will leave you now with one quote. It's a quote from General Colin Powell, 4 rules that he gave to his staff, and we've adopted them in our office. Tell me what you know. Tell me what you don't know. Then tell me what you think. Always distinguish which is which. Thank you.